Wearing a $3,000 suit and a victorious smirk, Caleb Smith walked into the courtroom, convinced the battle was over. He had successfully stripped his wife of her dignity, her home, and her future, ready to start a new life with a younger woman. However, Caleb's arrogance blinded him to one critical fact: the identity of his father-in-law. The quiet woman he had bullied for years is the daughter of a man who doesn't just know the law. He owns the town. The ink may be dry, but the real reckoning is just beginning. This is, he celebrated winning the divorce until his wife's father entered the courtroom. The champagne flute clinked against the polished marble of the bar top, the sound sharp and triumphant. "To liberation," Caleb Smith said, his voice smooth like oiled leather. He swirled the golden liquid, watching the bubbles rise, mesmerizing and endless, just like his future. Beside him, Jessica laughed, a sound that was half genuine, half performed for the benefit of the envious onlookers at the Obsidian, one of Seattle's most exclusive rooftop lounges. Jessica was 24, a marketing intern at Caleb's firm, and the primary reason Caleb's marriage to Anna was currently lying in a heap of legal ash. "To us," Jessica corrected, leaning in close, her hand resting possessively on the sleeve of his bespoke suit. "And to the settlement. Are you sure she's going to sign? I mean, really sign?" Caleb took a sip, savoring the dry bite of the Dom Perignon. "Babe, she has no choice. Anna is soft. She's been a stay-at-home shadow for 5 years. She doesn't have the fight in her. My lawyer, Brenner, destroyed her in the deposition last week. We painted her as unstable, dependent. The prenup is ironclad. She gets the Honda, I get the portfolio, the house in the Highlands, and the freedom." He checked his Rolex. 10 a.m. tomorrow. That was the final hearing. It was barely a formality at this point. "I almost feel bad for her," Jessica said, though her eyes were scanning the room, checking who was watching them. "Almost." "Don't!" Caleb scoffed. "She's a leech, Jess. She contributed nothing. I built Smith Logistics from the ground up while she planted hydrangeas and read paperback novels. It's only fair I keep what I built." Caleb believed this. He believed it with the fervor of a man who had rewritten history to suit his conscience. He conveniently forgot the nights in the early days when Anna had stayed up until 4 a.m., organizing his ledgers because he was too cheap to hire an accountant. He forgot that her allowance from her parents had paid for the down payment on their first warehouse. To Caleb, Anna was just an accessory that had gone out of style. "What about her family?" Jessica asked, tracing the rim of her glass. "You said her dad was some kind of business guy? Won't he intervene?" Caleb barked out a laugh. "Arthur, please. The guy is a ghost. I've met him twice in 6 years. He's some retired consultant living in a cabin in Montana or something. He didn't even come to our wedding, sent a card and a toaster. Anna is estranged from him. She hasn't spoken to him since her mum died. Trust me, the old man is probably too busy fishing to care that his daughter is about to be homeless." Caleb signaled the bartender for another bottle. He felt invincible. He was 34, the CEO of a booming logistics empire, and he was about to shed the dead weight of a boring marriage. "Tomorrow," Caleb whispered, kissing Jessica on the temple. "Tomorrow we walk out of that courtroom and I book our tickets to the Maldives. First class." The King County Superior Court was a dreary building, filled with the smell of floor wax and broken dreams. But to Caleb, it looked like a palace of opportunity. He walked down the hallway flanked by his attorney, Richard Brenner. Brenner was a shark in a cheap suit, aggressive, loud, and expensive. "Remember," Brenner muttered, clutching a thick file, "we don't give an inch. If she asks for spousal support adjustment, we bring up the mental distress evidence. We crush her, Caleb. We get in, we sign, we get out." She won't ask, Caleb said, adjusting his tie in the reflection of a glass door. She's terrified of conflict. They pushed through the heavy double doors of Courtroom 4B. Anna was already there. She sat at the defendant's table, looking smaller than Caleb remembered. She was wearing a simple grey dress that looked 3 seasons old. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, highlighting the dark circles under her eyes. She stared at her hands, which were clasped tightly in her lap. Next to her sat her lawyer, a court-appointed public defender named Mr. Henderson. The man looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His suit was rumpled, and he was frantically shuffling through papers that looked disorganized. Caleb smirked. It was pathetic. It was a slaughter. "Good morning, Anna," Caleb said, as he passed her table, his voice dripping with faux politeness. She didn't look up. She just flinched, a tiny, imperceptible movement that only Caleb saw. It fueled his ego. "Let's get this over with," Caleb said, dropping into his leather chair. Judge Harrison, a stern woman with a reputation for zero tolerance for nonsense, entered the room. "All rise." The bailiff droned on, announcing the case. Smith v. Smith. "Mr. Brenner," Judge Harrison said, adjusting her glasses. "I understand we have a settlement agreement." "We do, Your Honor." Brenner stood up, buttoning his jacket. "My client, Mr. Smith, has been incredibly generous given the circumstances. We are prepared to finalize the dissolution of marriage based on the terms previously discussed. Mrs. Smith waives all rights to the company and the primary residence in exchange for a lump sum payment of $20,000 and the 2019 Honda Civic." $20,000. It was an insult. It wouldn't even cover rent in Seattle for a year. Caleb fought the urge to smile. "Mrs. Smith," the judge looked at Anna. "Is this your understanding? Do you agree to these terms?" Anna's lawyer, the rumpled Mr. Henderson, stood up shakily. "Your Honor, my client is... She is prepared to sign, yes. She just wants this to be over." "Excellent," Brenner whispered to Caleb. "She's folding." Judge Harrison looked at Anna with a hint of pity. "Mrs. Smith, I need to hear it from you. Do you understand that by signing this, you are waiving your right to future support?" Anna looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She opened her mouth to speak, her voice trembling. I understand, Your Honor. I just want to leave." Caleb leaned back, crossing his legs. It was done. The victory was his. He looked at Jessica, who was sitting in the gallery, and gave her a subtle wink. "Very well," the judge sighed. "Clerk, please present the..." Boom! The double doors at the back of the courtroom didn't just open. They were thrown wide with a force that rattled the gallery benches. Every head in the room snapped around. Caleb turned, annoyed. Who would dare interrupt his moment? Standing in the doorway was a man. He was older, perhaps in his late 60s, but he stood with the posture of a military general. He wore a charcoal wool coat that looked expensive. Quietly expensive. He held a cane, but he didn't lean on it. He held it like a weapon. His silver hair was perfectly coiffed, and his eyes were like chips of blue ice. Behind him walked 3 men in matching black suits, carrying briefcases. They moved with the synchronized precision of a hit squad. The room fell into a stunned silence. The old man stepped into the aisle. His footsteps echoed on the linoleum, slow and deliberate. Click, click, click. Caleb frowned. The man looked vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place him. He looked like the kind of man who appeared on the cover of Forbes, not in a family court in Seattle. "Excuse me," Judge Harrison barked, slamming her gavel. "This is a closed session. Who are you, and what do you think you are doing interrupting my court?" The old man didn't stop until he reached the railing separating the gallery from the litigants. He looked at Caleb. He looked at him with a gaze so withering, so filled with cold, controlled fury, that Caleb actually felt a chill run down his spine. Then the man looked at Anna. The transformation was instant. The coldness vanished, replaced by a deep, pained softness. "I'm sorry I'm late, sweetheart," the man said, his voice a rich baritone that commanded the air. The traffic coming in from the airfield was dreadful. Anna looked up, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Dad?" Caleb froze. "Dad? This was Arthur? The fisherman? The recluse?" Arthur Harrington turned his gaze back to the judge. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his hands. He simply reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the rail to the bailiff. "My name is Arthur Harrington," he said calmly. "I am here to represent my daughter, Anna Smith, and I would like to make a motion to dismiss this pathetic excuse for a settlement immediately." Caleb's lawyer, Brenner, laughed. It was a nervous, confused laugh. "Objection. You can't just walk in here. Mr. Henderson is the attorney of record. You have no standing." Arthur Harrington smiled. It was a terrifying smile. He signaled to one of the men in black suits behind him. The man stepped forward and placed a document on the judge's bench. "Mr. Henderson was relieved of his duties as of 5 minutes ago," Arthur said. "And as for my standing, I believe you'll find my credentials in order. I'm not just her father. I'm the senior partner at Harrington, Voss, and Klein." The silence that followed was absolute. Harrington, Voss, and Klein. Caleb's stomach dropped through the floor. HVK wasn't a law firm. It was the law firm. They represented Fortune 500 companies, heads of state, and royalty. They didn't do divorces. They destroyed empires. And Arthur Harrington wasn't a retired consultant. He was the founder. The Lion of Wall Street. Caleb looked at Anna. She was weeping silently, looking at her father. Arthur turned to Caleb. "You celebrated last night, didn't you, Caleb? I heard you enjoyed the Dom Perignon." Caleb stammered. How did you know that?" Arthur took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried to every corner of the room. "Because I own the hotel you were drinking in, and son, you're about to find out that the bill has come due." "Harrington, Voss, and Klein?" Judge Harrison repeated, looking at the document in front of her. Her demeanor shifted instantly from annoyance to professional deference. Even judges knew when they were in the presence of legal royalty. "Yes, Your Honor," Arthur said, unbuttoning his coat and taking a seat next to Anna. He didn't ask for permission. He took it. He placed a gentle hand on Anna's trembling shoulder. "It appears my daughter has been under significant duress and was poorly advised. We are retracting the previous agreement." "Now wait a minute." Brenner, Caleb's lawyer, stood up, his face flushing red. "This is highly irregular. We have a verbal agreement. The paperwork was drawn up. You can't just swoop in here and—" "Mr. Brenner, is it?" Arthur didn't even look at him. He was opening one of the briefcases his associates had placed on the table. "I recall you. You graduated bottom of your class at Gonzaga, didn't you? You handle— what is it? Traffic violations and low-level asset disputes?" Brenner sputtered. I'm a respected member of this bar." "Sit down, Richard," Caleb hissed, pulling his lawyer's sleeve. He was beginning to sweat. The air conditioning was humming, but he felt like he was in an oven. "Just fix this." Arthur pulled a single, thick binder from the briefcase. "Your Honor, the plaintiff, Mr. Smith, claims that Smith Logistics was built entirely by his own efforts and that my daughter contributed nothing. He claims the assets are solely his." "That is a fact," Caleb spoke up, trying to regain his confidence. "I built that company. Anna sat at home. Arthur slowly turned his head. Is that so? He opened the binder. Exhibit A, Arthur said, his voice crisp. Bank records from 2018. A transfer of $85,000 from a trust in Anna Harrington's name to the business account of Smith Logistics. The memo line reads, payroll and startup costs. Caleb blanched. He had forgotten about that. He thought she had used her savings. He didn't know it came from a trust. Exhibit B, Arthur continued, flipping a page. Email correspondence between Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith, dated January through March of 2019. In these emails, Mrs. Smith outlines the entire logistical routing map for the Pacific Northwest expansion. A map, I might add, that is the core of your current business model. Arthur held up a printed email. Here, Caleb writes, Babe, you're a genius. This saves us 20% on fuel. I don't know what I'd do without you. The courtroom was silent. And finally, Arthur said, his voice hardening, Exhibit C, the prenuptial agreement. Ha! Caleb shouted, jumping on the opportunity. Exactly, the prenup. It says what's mine is mine. It's ironclad. Arthur looked at Caleb with something akin to amusement. Mr. Smith, did you actually read the prenup? Or did you just sign what your previous lawyer gave you? Of course I read it. Then you would know, Arthur said, putting on a pair of reading glasses, that there is a fidelity clause in Article 14, Section B. Caleb froze. Arthur read aloud. In the event that either party engages in extramarital affairs that lead to the dissolution of the marriage, the offending party forfeits all claims to marital assets, and the division of property shall default to a 80-20 split in favor of the injured party. Arthur took off his glasses. 80%, Caleb, of everything. Caleb felt the room spin. He looked at Jessica in the gallery. She looked horrified. He has no proof, Caleb shouted, standing up. That's slander. I have never cheated on my wife. Arthur sighed. He signaled to the second associate, who walked over to a television screen set up for evidence display. He plugged in a laptop. Mr. Smith, Arthur said softly. I told you, I own the Obsidian. I also own the security company that monitors the elevators in your apartment building, and I have a private investigator who has been following you for 6 months. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't just a photo. It was a video. It was 4K, high-definition footage of Caleb and Jessica arguing in the parking lot of Smith Logistics 3 months ago. Video Caleb. I told you, Jessica. Just wait until the divorce is final. I can't be seen with you at the house. Video Jessica. I'm tired of waiting, Caleb. I'm pregnant. The video froze. The gasp in the courtroom was audible. Even the judge looked shocked. Anna covered her mouth with her hand, a sob escaping her throat. She hadn't known about the baby. Caleb stood there, his mouth open, his face draining of all color. He looked at Jessica in the gallery. She was crying, holding her stomach. Pregnant, Anna whispered. Arthur turned to his daughter, his eyes filled with infinite sadness. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, darling, but you needed to see him for what he is. Arthur turned back to Caleb. The lion was no longer playing with his food, he was going for the throat. You didn't just cheat, Caleb. You tried to defraud my daughter. You tried to bully her into poverty while you sat on a fortune she helped you build. You thought because she was kind, she was weak. You thought because I was absent, I didn't care. Arthur leaned over the railing, his face inches from Caleb's. You woke up a sleeping giant, son. And now, I'm going to take it all. The company, the house, the cars, even the suit off your back, if I feel like it. Mr. Brenner, Judge Harrison said, her voice icy. I suggest you take a recess to explain to your client exactly how much trouble he is in. Because from where I'm sitting, Mr. Smith is about to lose a lot more than a divorce case. We are looking at perjury. "Recess!" Brenner squeaked. "We request a recess." "Granted." The judge banged the gavel. 30 minutes. As everyone stood up, Caleb collapsed into his chair. His legs wouldn't work. Arthur stood up, buttoned his coat, and offered his arm to Anna. "Come, Anna," he said gently. "Let's go get some coffee. Real coffee. Not that swill they serve in the lobby." Anna took her father's arm. She looked stronger already. As they walked past Caleb, she stopped. She looked down at her husband, the man she had loved, the man who had betrayed her. "Caleb?" she said softly. He looked up, eyes wild with panic. "I want the dog too," she said. And then she walked out, leaving Caleb Smith sitting in the wreckage of his own arrogance. The heavy oak door of the attorney-client consultation room slammed shut, cutting off the hum of the courthouse hallway. "You're fired!" Caleb spat, pacing the small room like a caged tiger. He loosened his tie, his chest heaving. "You're incompetent, Brenner. You said she had nothing. You said her father was a nobody." Richard Brenner wiped sweat from his receding hairline with a handkerchief. "Caleb, be reasonable. Nobody knew. Arthur Harrington hasn't taken a case in 15 years. He's a legend. He wrote the textbook on asset forfeiture. You didn't tell me your wife was a Harrington." "I didn't think it mattered," Caleb screamed, kicking a chair. It skidded across the linoleum and hit the wall with a deafening crash. Jessica sat in the corner, sobbing quietly. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had toasted to their victory the night before. Her mascara was running, staining her cheeks in dark, jagged lines. "Shut up, Jess," Caleb snapped, turning on her. "This is your fault. You couldn't keep your mouth shut. You had to get pregnant. You had to demand we go public." Jessica looked up, her eyes flashing with a sudden, sharp anger. "My fault? You're the one who said she was stupid. You're the one who said we could take everything. Don't you dare put this on me, Caleb. I'm carrying your child." "A child I can't afford if I lose my company," Caleb roared. He turned back to Brenner. "Fix this. Offer them the house. Offer them 50 grand. Just get them to sign a non-disclosure agreement so the video doesn't leak. If my investors see that video, Smith Logistics stock tanks." "Caleb," Brenner said, his voice trembling. "You don't understand. We are past negotiation. That was a destroy him opening statement. Arthur Harrington is going for the jugular. The infidelity clause triggers the 80-20 split. You are going to lose the company." "No," Caleb whispered, his eyes narrowing. A dark, desperate idea formed in his mind. "Not if there's no company to split." He pulled out his phone. "What are you doing?" Brenner asked, alarmed. "I have offshore accounts," Caleb muttered, his thumbs flying across the screen. "Cayman Islands, shell companies. I started moving assets 6 months ago, just in case. If I move the liquid capital now, before the judge freezes the assets, I can claim the business is insolvent. Bankruptcy. She gets 80% of nothing." "Caleb, stop!" Brenner lunged forward. "That is a felony. You are in the middle of a court proceeding. If you move assets now, it's wire fraud and obstruction of justice." Caleb shoved the lawyer back. "I built this empire. I am not handing it over to that librarian and her fossil of a father." He dialed a number. "Derek, it's me. Initiate protocol Ghost. Yes, right now. All of it. Every cent from the operating accounts. Move it to the shells. Clean the servers. Do it now." He hung up, a twisted smile playing on his lips. "There. Let them have the furniture. The money is gone." Outside in the hallway, the atmosphere was vastly different. Arthur Harrington stood by a vending machine, handing a bottle of water to Anna. He looked out of place in the dingy hallway, like a lion wandering through a petting zoo. "I didn't know," Anna whispered, taking the water. "I didn't know you were this Arthur Harrington. Mom always said you just worked in the city." Arthur sighed, looking at his daughter with regret. "Your mother wanted you to have a normal life, Anna. She didn't want you growing up in the shadow of my reputation. I made a lot of enemies in my time. I thought if I stayed away you'd be safer. Happier." He reached out and tucked a stray hair behind her ear. "I was wrong. I left you unprotected, and a wolf like Caleb smelled blood." "He's going to fight, Dad," Anna said, her voice shaking. "He never loses. He cheats. He lies. He'll burn the company down before he gives it to me." Arthur smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm counting on it." One of Arthur's associates, a sharp-eyed woman named Linda, approached them. She held a tablet. "Mr. Harrington," she said quietly, "we have movement." Arthur looked at the screen. A graph showed a sudden, massive spike in data traffic from the Smith Logistics servers. "He's moving the money?" Arthur asked. "Yes, sir. He just authorized a transfer of $4 million to a bank in the Caymans, and he ordered a server wipe." Anna gasped. "He's stealing the money. That's the employee payroll. That's the vendor payments." Arthur nodded slowly. "He's trying to hollow out the company so you inherit a shell." "We have to stop him," Anna cried. "Go back in there. Tell the judge." Arthur placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "Patience, Anna. If we stop him now, it's just attempted fraud. We need him to finish the transaction." "Why?" Arthur's eyes hardened into blue steel. "Because, my dear, I don't just want him broke. I want him in prison. Let him hang himself. We'll pull the rope when he's done." 30 minutes later, the court reconvened. Caleb walked back in, looking significantly more composed. He buttoned his jacket, shot a glare at Anna, and whispered something to Brenner. Brenner looked like he was about to vomit, but he nodded. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Harrison sat down, looking expectantly at the defense table. "Mr. Brenner, have you explained the reality of the situation to your client?" Brenner stood up. "Your Honor, my client contests the validity of the prenuptial agreement's fidelity clause based on ambiguity. However, in the interest of resolving this matter, Mr. Smith is willing to offer a settlement." "We are listening," Arthur Harrington said from his seat, not bothering to stand. He was checking his watch. "Mr. Smith offers Mrs. Smith the marital home, fully paid off, and a cash settlement of $50,000. He retains full ownership of Smith Logistics." "Denied," Arthur said instantly. Caleb stood up, feigning outrage. "That house is worth $2 million. It's more than she deserves. The company is struggling, Your Honor. The market is down. If we split the company, it will collapse. It's worth nothing on paper." "Is that so?" Arthur stood up slowly. "The company is worthless." "Yes," Caleb lied, his voice steady. "We are barely solvent. I'm keeping it afloat with my own blood and sweat." Arthur walked to the center of the room. "Your Honor, I would like to call a witness to the stand. He is outside the doors right now." "We are not in trial phase, Mr. Harrington," the judge warned. "This pertains to the immediate financial status of the assets in question, Your Honor. It is vital." The judge nodded. "Proceed." "I call Derek Evans, Chief Financial Officer of Smith Logistics." Caleb's head snapped toward the door. "Derek." The doors opened. Derek Evans walked in. He was a small man with glasses, clutching a briefcase to his chest. He wouldn't look at Caleb. He walked straight to the witness stand. Caleb felt a cold sweat break out on his neck. Derek was supposed to be moving the money. Why was he here? "Mr. Evans," Arthur began, leaning on his cane. You received a phone call 35 minutes ago. Who was it from? Derek swallowed hard. He looked at the judge, then at Arthur. It was from Caleb Smith. And what did Mr. Smith instruct you to do? Objection, Brenner screamed. Attorney-client privilege, or, spousal. This is private business strategy. Overruled, Judge Harrison barked. Answer the question. Derek's voice shook. He ordered me to initiate Protocol Ghost. It's a contingency plan to liquidate the company's operating accounts and wire the funds to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands named Blue Horizon Holdings. Then he told me to wipe the servers. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Caleb stood up, his face purple. You liar! You traitor! I never said that. Order! The judge slammed her gavel. Arthur continued, his voice calm and deadly. And did you execute this order, Mr. Evans? No, sir, Derek said quietly. Caleb froze. No. Why not? Arthur asked. Derek looked at Caleb finally, his eyes filled with fear and resentment. Because 5 minutes before Caleb called, you called me Mr. Harrington. Arthur nodded. And what did I tell you, Mr. Evans? You told me that you represent the bank that holds the mortgage on my house. And you told me that if I facilitated one more illegal wire transfer for Caleb Smith, you would personally ensure I spent the next 20 years in a federal penitentiary. But if I came here and testified, you'd ensure I got immunity. Caleb slumped back into his chair. He had been outbid. Arthur turned to the judge. Your Honor, Mr. Smith just attempted to embezzle $4 million of marital assets during a court recess. This is not just a divorce case anymore. This is grand larceny and fraud. Arthur gestured to the screen. Furthermore, Mr. Evans has provided us with the ghost ledger. It seems this isn't the first time Mr. Smith has moved money. The screen lit up with a spreadsheet. Here, Arthur pointed with his cane. 2021. $200,000 diverted from employee 401k matching funds to purchase a Porsche 911. The same Porsche currently parked in the courthouse lot. Here, Arthur continued. 2022. Tax evasion. $500,000 in revenue listed as consulting fees paid to a company registered to Jessica Miller. Every head turned to Jessica. She gasped, shrinking into her seat. I didn't know, Jessica shrieked. He just asked for my social security number. He said it was for insurance. You're an accomplice, Miss Miller, Arthur said coldly. But we'll get to you. He turned back to Caleb, who was now trembling visibly. Your Honor, Arthur said. Caleb Smith has treated this court, and his wife, with contempt. He has stolen from his employees. He has stolen from the government, and he tried to steal the last crumbs from the woman who helped him build it all. Arthur walked back to his table and sat down. We move for an immediate freezing of all assets, the immediate removal of Caleb Smith as CEO of Smith Logistics, and we ask the court to refer this matter to the district attorney's office. Judge Harrison looked at Caleb. Her expression was one of pure disgust. Mr. Smith, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Sit down and shut up. Bailiff, secure the doors. Nobody leaves. She turned to the clerk. Get the district attorney on the phone. Now. Anna sat frozen. She watched as 2 police officers entered the back of the room. They weren't there for traffic duty. They were carrying handcuffs. She looked at her father. Arthur was calmly writing something on a notepad. Dad, she whispered. Is he going to jail? Arthur stopped writing. He looked at the man he had just systematically dismantled. That depends on the district attorney, sweetheart, Arthur said. But considering I play golf with him on Sundays, I'd say Caleb should get comfortable with the color orange. But Caleb wasn't done. A cornered animal bites, even when its back is broken. He stood up, ignoring the judge's order. He looked at Anna, his eyes wild, stripped of all the charm and arrogance, leaving only raw malice. "You think you won?" Caleb sneered, his voice cracking. "You think you can run that company? You're nothing, Anna. You're a weak, pathetic housewife. You can't handle the unions. You can't handle the suppliers. The moment I'm gone, the contracts dissolve. I made sure of it." He laughed, a manic, jagged sound. "There's a key man clause in the supplier contracts. If I am removed as CEO, our 3 biggest shipping partners can void their deals immediately. The company dies with me. So go ahead. Send me to jail. You'll inherit a graveyard." The courtroom went silent again. Anna looked at Arthur. "Is that true?" Arthur frowned. He motioned to Linda, who was frantically typing on her tablet. She looked up and nodded grimly. "He's right," Linda whispered. "The contracts with Maersk and Evergreen have a termination clause if Caleb Smith is no longer the signatory. If they walk, the company loses 60% of its revenue overnight." Caleb grinned. "See? Mutually assured destruction, Arthur. You want to destroy me? Fine. But you destroy your daughter's inheritance too. So let's make a deal. I keep the company, I stay out of jail, and I give her $1 million. Take it or leave it." Arthur looked at Caleb. For the first time, he hesitated. He knew the law, but he didn't know the logistics business. He couldn't force suppliers to stay. Caleb had played his ace. He was holding the company hostage. Anna looked at her husband. She saw the smug satisfaction returning to his face. He thought he had found the stalemate. Slowly, Anna stood up. She didn't look at her father. She didn't look at the judge. She looked straight at Caleb. "You think the suppliers work with us because of you?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. "Of course they do," Caleb scoffed. "I wined and dined them. I signed the deals." Anna shook her head. She reached into her tote bag, the worn-out bag Caleb had made fun of earlier. She pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. "You signed the deals, Caleb, but I fixed their problems." She opened the notebook. "Mr. Johansson at Maersk? You took him to strip clubs. I sent his diabetic daughter a care package every month and reorganized his Seattle docking schedule so his drivers could be home for Christmas. I'm the one who answers his emails at 2 a.m. when you're out with Jessica." She turned a page. "The Evergreen contract. You think they stayed because of your charm?" "They stayed because I caught a routing error in 2020 that would have cost them $10 million. I fixed it, and I didn't tell them it was your mistake. I let you take the credit." Anna walked toward the railing. She wasn't the small, scared woman anymore. She was the backbone of Smith Logistics, stepping into the light. "You're right, Caleb. There is a key man clause. But you're not the key man." She turned to her father. "Dad, give me your phone." "Anna?" Arthur asked, surprised. "Give me the phone." Arthur handed it over. Anna dialed a number from memory and put it on speaker. The microphone on the witness stand picked up the ringing. "Ring. Ring. Hello?" A gruff voice answered. "This is Johansson." "Mr. Johansson," Anna said clearly. "It's Anna Smith." "Anna!" The voice warmed instantly. "Good to hear from you. Everything okay? We haven't seen the Q3 projections yet." "I'm calling to tell you that Caleb is stepping down as CEO. Effective immediately," Anna said, staring dead at Caleb. "There is a clause that allows you to void the contract." Caleb held his breath. This was it. The bluff. "Well," Johansson said, his voice hesitant, "that is the standard contract language, yes. We did like Caleb, but—" "I will be taking over as interim CEO," Anna interrupted. and my father, Arthur Harrington, will be handling the legal restructuring." There was a pause on the line, a long, agonizing silence. "Anna," Johansson said, "are you telling me you are going to be in charge of the routing?" "Yes. Every shipment. Personally." Johansson let out a loud, booming laugh. "Well, hell, Anna. Why didn't you say so? We only tolerated Caleb because we knew you were doing the real work anyway. Void the contract? Not a chance. In fact, if you're in charge, let's talk about expanding the Asia route. I've been waiting for Caleb to get out of the way for years." Anna smiled. It was a radiant, dangerous smile. "Thank you, Mr. Johansson. I'll send you the paperwork." She hung up. She looked at Caleb. He was white as a sheet. His ace had just been trumped. "You were saying?" Anna asked. Arthur Harrington threw his head back and laughed, a genuine, proud laugh. "That's my girl." Judge Harrison banged her gavel, a smirk on her face. "Mr. Smith," the judge said, "it appears your leverage has expired. Officers, please take the defendant into custody. I believe we have a lot to discuss regarding tax fraud." As the officers moved in, grabbing Caleb by the arms, he started screaming. "This isn't fair! I built this! I built this!" "No, Caleb," Anna said, watching him get dragged away. "You just put your name on it." The glass doors of Smith Logistics slid open with a soft whoosh, a sound Anna had heard 1,000 times before. But today, the air inside felt different. It was charged with a frantic, nervous energy. News travels fast, especially when the CEO is handcuffed in a courtroom. Anna walked in, her heels clicking rhythmically on the polished concrete floor. She wasn't wearing the grey, worn-out dress from court. She had stopped at her apartment and changed into a navy blue power suit she hadn't worn since her pre-marriage days. Her hair was down, cascading in waves, and her eyes were sharp. Flanking her were two of Arthur's associates, forensic accountants who looked like they ate balance sheets for breakfast. The receptionist, a young woman named Chloe, who had always smirked at Anna when she came to bring Caleb lunch, went pale. Mrs. Smith," Chloe stammered, standing up so fast she knocked over her stapler. We didn't expect you." "I imagine not," Anna said, stopping at the desk. She didn't raise her voice, but the command in it was unmistakable. "Chloe, please issue a company-wide email, mandatory meeting in the conference room in 10 minutes, and cancel Caleb's lunch reservation at the Capitol Grill. He won't be needing it." Anna walked past the desk, heading straight for the executive wing. As she passed the rows of cubicles, heads popped up like prairie dogs. Whispers trailed her like smoke. "Is that her? I heard Caleb is in jail. She looks different." She reached Caleb's office, the corner office with the panoramic view of the Seattle skyline. The door was locked. "Allow me," one of Arthur's associates said. He produced a key card, likely obtained through Arthur's connections, and beeped the door open. The office smelled of Caleb's expensive cologne and arrogance. Anna walked to the massive mahogany desk. She ran her hand over the leather chair. This was the throne he had built on her back. She sat down. It was comfortable. "Secure the computer," Anna ordered the associates. "I want every email, every transaction, every chat log backed up before his lawyers try to purge it remotely." "Already on it, Mrs. Smith." The door creaked open. Anna looked up, expecting an employee. Instead, it was Jessica. Jessica Miller looked like a wreck. Her eyes were puffy, her hair messy, and she was clutching her stomach. She hovered in the doorway, unsure whether to enter or run. "Anna," Jessica whispered. Anna didn't blink. She swiveled the chair to face the woman who had helped destroy her marriage. "It's Ms. Harrington to you, or Mrs. Smith, if we're being legalistic. What do you want, Jessica?" Jessica stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. I need to know what's going to happen. To the company. To my job. Anna laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Your job? Jessica, you were listed as a consultant for tax evasion purposes. You don't have a job, you have a criminal record in the making. I'm pregnant, Jessica blurted out, tears spilling over. I have nothing, Anna. Caleb promised me everything. He said he'd take care of us. Now his accounts are frozen, and he's in a holding cell. I can't pay my rent. I can't pay for the baby. She took a step closer, her voice turning, pleading. Please, you're a woman. You understand. I was in love. He manipulated me too. Anna looked at Jessica, really looked at her. She saw the fear, yes, but she also saw the calculation. Jessica wasn't here for forgiveness. She was here for a payout. He did manipulate you, Anna agreed softly. But you were a willing participant, Jessica. You mocked me. I saw the texts on his phone. You called me the frump. You laughed when he told you he cut my grocery allowance. Jessica flinched. And as for the baby, Anna continued, leaning forward, her elbows on the desk. I just got off the phone with the district attorney. Caleb is trying to cut a deal. Jessica froze. What deal? He's offering to testify against you. Anna lied smoothly. It was a bluff, a page out of her father's book. He claims the embezzlement was your idea. He says you pressured him to hide the money because of the baby. He's trying to pin the tax fraud entirely on you to reduce his sentence. That bastard! Jessica shrieked, her face twisting in rage. He told me to open those accounts. I have the emails. I have the voice memos. Anna smiled. Do you? Yes, I recorded everything, because I knew he was slippery. Jessica fumbled with her phone. I have a recording of him from last week explaining exactly how to wash the money through the shell company. Anna held out her hand. Give it to me. Why should I? Because, Anna said, if you give me the evidence that nails Caleb to the wall, I might convince my father not to sue you for civil damages. You'll still face the police for the fraud, but you won't be destitute. You keep the evidence. You go down with him. Alone. Jessica looked at the phone, then at Anna. The fight went out of her. She unlocked the phone and placed it in Anna's hand. He's a monster, Jessica whispered. I know, Anna said, pocketing the phone. You're fired, Jessica. Security will escort you out. Take a box for your personal items. You have 5 minutes. As Jessica was led away, sobbing, Anna looked out the window at the grey Seattle sky. She had just secured the final nail in Caleb's coffin. But the war wasn't over. Caleb was out on bail, and a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous kind of enemy. 3 weeks later, Caleb Smith paced the stained carpet of the Motel 6 on the outskirts of Tacoma. It was a far cry from his penthouse. His assets were frozen, his passport surrendered, and an ugly black ankle monitor was strapped to his leg. He had made bail thanks to a loan from a shady business associate from his past, a loan shark named Vinny, who was charging him 20% interest a week. Caleb was desperate. He stared at his laptop. He had been locked out of the Smith Logistics servers, but Caleb knew something Anna didn't. He knew the back door. Years ago, when he first set up the digital infrastructure, he had installed a kill switch, a hidden code embedded in the routing software that could scramble the database. It was his nuclear option, intended to hold the company hostage if he was ever ousted by a board of directors. You think you can run my company, Anna? Caleb muttered, his eyes bloodshot. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Let's see how you handle a blackout. He cracked his knuckles and began to type. The code was complex, a series of commands that would overwrite the destination addresses for every shipment currently in transit. Medical supplies going to hospitals would be rerouted to landfills. Perishable food would be sent to warehouses with no refrigeration. It would be chaos. The lawsuits would bankrupt the company in a week. Anna would fail. And then, maybe just maybe, he could swoop in as the consultant to fix it. For a price. He hit enter. The screen flashed green. Command executed. Caleb leaned back, a twisted grin spreading across his face. Boom! Red light started flashing on the main operations board. Alert! Routing error! A technician shouted. We're losing telemetry on the Pacific Fleet! Addresses are rewriting themselves! Anna was in the control room instantly. What's happening? Someone triggered a wipe, the IT director yelled, typing furiously. It's a malicious code. It's scrambling the database. Mrs. Smith, if we don't stop this, 40,000 tons of cargo will be lost within the hour. Panic began to rise in the room. This was the nightmare scenario. Anna stared at the screen. She saw the code scrolling past. It looked chaotic, random. But Anna noticed something, a pattern. Wait, she said, grabbing the technician's shoulder. Stop trying to block it. You're feeding it. What? It's not a virus, Anna said, her mind racing back to 2018, late nights helping Caleb code the original interface. It's a mirror loop. Caleb wrote this. He used to talk about dead man switches in video games. She pushed the technician aside and took the keyboard. Anna, what are you doing? Arthur asked, stepping up behind her. He had been reviewing legal docs in the corner. I'm playing his game, Dad. Anna typed rapidly. She didn't try to delete the code. She inverted it. She typed in the date of their wedding, the password Caleb had used for the root directory, back when he actually pretended to love her. EX-12 for 2018. The screen froze. Then a text box appeared. Override successful. The red lights turned green. The addresses reverted to their correct destinations. The crisis, which had lasted all of 3 minutes, was over. Anna exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. How did you do that? The IT director asked, wide-eyed. I knew his password, Anna said quietly. He never changes it because he's too arrogant to think anyone else would remember it. Arthur looked at the screen, then at his daughter. He just violated his bail conditions. Using a computer to commit sabotage is a federal offense. Trace the IP, Anna ordered. Already done, the technician said. It's coming from a Motel 6 in Tacoma, room 104. Arthur pulled out his phone. I'm calling the FBI. They've been waiting for him to slip up. Caleb was popping a bottle of cheap beer, waiting for the news reports of the chaos. He turned on the TV, expecting to see breaking news about a logistics crisis. Instead, he saw a commercial for car insurance. He frowned. He refreshed his laptop. Access denied. User traced. What? Caleb slammed the keys. No, that's impossible. Then he heard it. The sirens. Not one, but many. He ran to the window and peered through the blinds. The parking lot was swarming with black SUVs. Agents with FBI on their jackets were moving toward his door with battering rams. Caleb Smith, a voice boomed over a megaphone. This is the FBI. Come out with your hands up. Caleb stumbled back, tripping over his beer bottle. It shattered, soaking his socks in stale lager. No, 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 he whimpered. I'm smarter than them. I'm smarter than her. Crash. The door splintered inward. Flashbangs went off, filling the room with blinding light and deafening noise. Caleb was thrown to the ground, a boot pressing his face into the beer-soaked carpet. You have the right to remain silent, an agent shouted, cuffing his hands behind his back, tight. As they dragged him out of the room, Caleb looked up and saw a black sedan parked behind the police line. The window rolled down. Arthur Harrington sat in the back seat. He lowered his sunglasses and looked at Caleb. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just gave a small, dismissive wave. Caleb screamed as they shoved him into the back of the van. 6 months later. The King County Courthouse was packed. This wasn't family court anymore. This was criminal court. The charges against Caleb Smith were a laundry list of white-collar sins: embezzlement, wire fraud, tax evasion, corporate sabotage, and cyber warfare. Caleb sat at the defense table. He looked gaunt. His hair had thinned, and the expensive suits were gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit that washed out his complexion. He had refused a plea deal, convinced he could charm the jury. It was a fatal mistake. Anna sat in the front row next to her father. She held a notebook, the same notebook she used to run the company. Smith Logistics was posting record profits. The Anna strategy of treating employees and clients with respect had reduced turnover by 40%. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Alvarez, stood up. "Your Honor, the prosecution calls its final witness." Caleb looked up, expecting another accountant. "We call Jessica Miller." Caleb's eyes bulged. Jessica walked in. She was wearing a modest outfit, looking humble. She had taken a plea deal, probation in exchange for full testimony. She sat on the stand and avoided Caleb's gaze. "Ms. Miller?" Alvarez asked. "Did Mr. Smith instruct you on how to hide the assets?" "Yes," Jessica said clearly. "He told me Anna was too stupid to notice. He said he wanted to leave her with nothing but debt. And he told me that if I ever turned on him, he'd make sure I never worked again." She played the voice recording, the one she had given Anna in the office. Caleb's voice filled the courtroom. "Just sign the papers, Jess. Once the accounts are drained, Anna will be begging on the street. She's a leech. We take the money, we go to the Maldives, and we let the company burn." The jury looked at Caleb with pure loathing. Caleb stood up, his face red. "She doctored that. That's AI. That's fake." "Sit down, Mr. Smith," the judge roared. It took the jury less than an hour to deliberate. "Guilty," the foreman read. "On all counts." Judge Harrison, the same judge from the divorce hearing who had requested to preside over the criminal sentencing due to her familiarity with the defendant's character, looked down at Caleb over her spectacles. "Caleb Smith," she said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "In my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a case of such profound greed and malice. You didn't just want to leave your wife, you wanted to destroy her. You bit the hand that fed you, and when you were caught, you tried to burn the house down." She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "I sentence you to 15 years in a federal correctional facility, with no possibility of parole for the first 10. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution of $5 million to Smith Logistics." The gavel banged. Bam! It sounded like a gunshot. Caleb's knees buckled. He was hauled up by the marshals. As he was dragged away, he looked back at the gallery. He locked eyes with Anna. He expected to see hate. He expected to see triumph. But Anna just looked bored. She was already checking her watch. She had a meeting with the Port Authority in an hour. She stood up, smoothed her skirt, and turned to her father. "Ready to go, Dad? I'm buying lunch." Arthur Harrington beamed. He stood up, adjusted his coat, and offered his arm. "I believe you owe me a steak, Madame CEO." They walked out of the courtroom, leaving the darkness behind them, stepping into the bright, crisp Seattle afternoon. As they reached the steps of the courthouse, a reporter ran up to them. "Mrs. Smith! Mrs. Smith, do you have any comment on your ex-husband's sentence? How does it feel to win?" Anna stopped. She looked at the camera, her expression calm and powerful. "I didn't win," she said. "I just took out the trash. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run." She turned and walked away, her father by her side, her head held high. She wasn't Anna, the victim. She wasn't Anna, the wife. She was Anna Harrington, and she had finally arrived. And that is the story of how Caleb Smith learned the hardest lesson of his life. Never mistake silence for weakness, and never, ever underestimate the quiet ones. He thought he held all the cards, but he forgot that the person who built the table can also flip it over. Caleb lost his freedom, his fortune, and his future, all because he couldn't be a decent human being. Anna, on the other hand, found the one thing she had lost in her marriage, her own strength. What did you think of Arthur's entrance in the courtroom? And would you have forgiven Jessica, or did she get off too easy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We drop new dramas every week. Thanks for watching. And remember, be careful who you step on. They might just be the one holding the ladder. See you next time.